Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of News and Reviews on MEXLX. Today we want to talk to you about a couple of issues. The first one is to do with the independent candidates. We haven't heard a lot about that recently. There's only one left standing. Tell us about that, Kurt.
Yeah, so as far as independent candidacies go in this year's presidential election, a lot of them bit the dust. We heard a lot about how this was going to be the first year of independent candidacies in presidential elections. The candidates handed in their signatures to the National Electoral Institute, and it turns out a lot of them were false, either photocopied or actually deliberately falsified signatures. So Jaime Calderon, the Branco, governor of Nuevo León, is out. Armando Rios Peter, former PRD senator, is out. And the person left standing is Margarita Zavala, strangely enough, the wife of former President Felipe Calderon, who also falsified signatures. But the INE said, well, some of the signatures were false, but enough of them were good. So even if you break the rules, you can still get on the ballot. Unfortunately, as we've already talked about, Mari Chui didn't get anywhere near the number of signatures required to get on the ballot, although she certainly gets the Pride Award that I think 95% of her signatures were legitimate signatures, which was far and away above any of these independent candidates who had a lot of money to use a lot of trickery to try to get the signatures required.
Okay, the second issue that's really just beginning to have some resonance here in Mexico is connected to a much larger scandal that's been unfolding in the UK and the United States over the last few days.
Right.
It has to do with the company Cambridge Analytica, who worked for the Trump campaign, owned by Robert Mercer, a multi-billionaire hedge fund owner in the U.S. Cambridge Analytica, through an undercover documentary by Channel 4 in the U.K., were revealed to and confessed openly on camera to using all manner of dirty tricks, from prostitutes to collecting illegal data from Facebook to use for electoral targeting for the Trump campaign, and I gather also the Brexit campaign earlier on. So this is a huge scandal unfolding internationally. It has some Mexican ramifications. You want to talk about that, Kurt?
Yeah, so what's the Mexican connection here? As we know, the data breach with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook meant that Cambridge Analytica got hold of the data of 50 million Facebook users throughout the United States. Now, as it turns out, Facebook, just in February, signed a vast, sweeping agreement with Mexico's Electoral Institute to have unprecedented access to the Electoral Institute on the night of the elections. This means that they'll have their own office in the Electoral Institute. They will be broadcasting results in real time the night of the election. And also, they'll be teaming up with the Electoral Institute to fight fake news. Now, considering that the top news stories on Facebook during the U.S. campaign of 2016 were all fake news stories, this is a bit rich. But they're also supposedly, Facebook is going to be teaming up with the Electoral Institute with certain ventures to promote the vote, such as the electoral megaphone to invite Facebook users to go out to vote, an informed voter button to give news and interesting news and data people who are interested in the elections. According to the Electoral Institute's president, Lorenzo Cordova, he says this is going to be a very fortunate laboratory in which the society, industry, and the authorities will come together to generate a context of strengthening of democracy. This is something that has to be very clearly questioned. First of all, in the light of the breach that you were just talking about, how can Mexicans know if they're going to be using this electoral megaphone or this informed voter button, what's going to happen to their data? So that's one problem. Another problem is it's already been very well proven that Facebook does these kind of things with a very interested point of view. They want to get data on voters in order to be able to target advertising and sell their data to third parties and use their data in other ways. So this is a very dangerous precedent, setting up this mega giant Facebook with Mexico's Electoral Institute. It's also in the context of the Electoral Institute's very low confidence among voters. This is an electoral institute that, under a different name, the Federal Electoral Institute, held the rigged election of 2006. In 2012, Enrique Peña Nieto violated every electoral law in the book without their having anything to do about it. Just last year, there were two rigged elections for governor in the state of Coahuila and the very dirty election in the state of Mexico. So, it stands to reason that before you're worried about fake news, you should stop organizing fake elections.
Yeah.
One would think. So, this is an electoral institute back in 2006 whose electoral rolls wound up on the website of the PAN party. So, boy, if you get these two, organizations in a room, Facebook and the National Electoral Institute, who knows where the data is going to wind up? And this is going to be a real problem heading into the night of the election, which we will be covering on NextElects, because there's already so much doubt as to whether the veracity of the elections. And now with this new link between Facebook and what we know about Cambridge Analytica, there's even now more doubt about what's going on with the voter data. And just to conclude on this point, it's also when Channel 4 broke the story in Britain, a representative of Cambridge Analytica allowed that they've already been active in Mexico. And it's rumored that they were very active in that election in the state of Mexico last year for the pre-candidate Del Mazo, who miraculously won against Morena. Will something like this happen again?